Near Mint Condition, the home of collected editions.
That cover's so awesome.
Absolute format is the best way to own this store. Time to empty those wallets and fill those shelves.
Happy Tuesday, all you mentees. Uncanny Omar here from Near Mint Condition, the home of collected editions. And join me today for your advanced look at all of these collected editions coming out from Marvel Comics this week. So join me. And welcome back, everybody. So before getting started, a big thank you to David Gabriel and the fine folks at Marvel for sending us advanced copies of these books. All of these books are due out in the direct market and book market on February 13th or 14th, depending on where you get your books. So we're looking at a brand new Epic collection, finishing out a particular series here with Luke Cage, some brand new mini-series and ongoing series, and then these collections here that aren't quite epics and they're not quite complete collections, but I guess we'll just go over them when I get there, because I do put timestamps in the description of the video to let you know when I'm going to be talking about a particular book, in case you're just interested in a couple of these, or if you're interested in not having any spoilers in your life, then you can just jump around. But before you do, don't forget to smash that like button, please. Very small thing you can do for us here on the channel, but it means the world to us. Alright, this week, let's start with Red Goblin. Let's do Red Goblin first. So here we have Red Goblin, Volume 2, Nature Nurture. I have this cover here by In-Hyuk Lee. And I do want to say that the solicits for this particular book, the cover looked a little bit different. It's not this fight going on between the Red Goblin and Venom. Now, before I crack this book open, the events that are taking place here take place after the Carnage Reigns stories. And I do have to talk about some of the things that happened in the first volume to talk about the pitch for what's happening in here. So if you don't want to know what happened in the first volume, you want to find out for yourself, by all means, jump to the next book. It's Captain Marvel, The Dark Tempest. But just in case, minor spoilers. Okay. The Red Goblin. This is the first volume right here. It runs in the family, and this series is over, so it does wrap up with this particular volume. We have Alex Pachnadel is the main writer. Jan Bazaldua and Chris Campana and Rafael Pimentel are the artists throughout this book. And we have this. This is the cover that I remember seeing here. But what happened previously is we've learned that this symbiote known as Rascal has now been inside of Normie for a long time. And in the first volume, we see that Normie becomes the new Red Goblin. Normie, of course, being the grandson of Norman Osborn and the son of Harry Osborn. And in the first volume, we're introduced to the concept of a new Goblin King and a new Goblin Nation. And we know that the Goblin King and the Goblin Nation have been around there for a long time. But this is a new person that is now in charge of the Goblin Nation. And this Goblin King, as he calls himself, is none other than Phil Urich. And he was once the character, the good guy known as the Green Goblin. He was in the pages of the Runaways, the Losers. As a matter of fact, there's a nice little tie-in here. And in here, he makes Kendra, one of the Goblin Nation kids, his Goblin Knight, saying that one day she will be the new Goblin King. Kind of giving her that pep talk she needs to go and do a particular mission. And the mission that he wants her to do is go and kidnap this kid named Timothy Anders. But he's not really after Timothy Anders. Who he's really after is Normie Osborn. And Timothy Anders happens to be in Normie Osborn's class. So she wrecks this field trip, tries to kidnap this kid. But of course, Normie during this time, after the events of Carnage Reigns, has kind of distanced himself from the Rascal symbiote. And it's not really up to him, it's really up to Rascal. Because Rascal noticed that every time that Normie would get sad, he would lose control and start attacking people. So it's like he's doing it for the benefit of both of them. But whenever this happens, he knows that he needs to go and help out Normie. And Normie again becomes the Red Goblin, and now he's fighting this new Goblin Knight. Meanwhile, the other Goblin Nation goons are kidnapping Timothy, and what ends up happening is this huge fight breaks out, and again, Rascal ends up cutting loose, almost becoming this killing machine again. But you have this scene right here where Normie's like, hey, no, don't do that. We don't kill people. So they're having this argument. The NYPD gets involved. And finally, this gets dark. What the Goblin King does is say, okay, I don't need these people anymore. I don't need Kendra. I don't need anybody else. I just need the symbiote. And if you're wondering how Phil is still alive, well, it's because of the goblin serum that he's still alive, that he was brought back from the dead looking like this corpse, though. Looks a little beat up here. But what he does is he hires freaking Crossbones to go after these kids and just kill them all. I mean, he doesn't want any strings left attached. Like, he just wants to cut loose on all these kids. That is freaking dark. So that's what happens for the rest of the issues. And if you're wondering what this is, well, that's found in issue number 10. So this does collect Red Goblin issues 6 through 10. It's 112 pages and retails for $15.99. There's a couple of little things that they add in here, and I'm sad to see the series go because I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed Volume 1, and I enjoyed this one too, and I wanted the character of Normie and Rascal to be explored a little bit more. And I'm sure we're going to see them again, especially with all the symbiote love that Venom and Carnage are both getting. But I just really like reading about this kid and learning how to control this power. Because it does remind me of, like, characters like Spider-Man. Even though we have, like, a psycho freaking killer symbiote that he's attached to. Now, in the back is where you're going to find nothing. It's the goodbye letter. All the variant covers are on the opposite side of the main covers here. That's a gorgeous one there by Philip Tan. Captain Marvel Dark Tempest. I'll be honest with you, I was really excited to read this book. For one reason, and that is Ann Nocenti. I'm a huge fan of Ann Nocenti on Longshot, on, of course, her run on Daredevil. She wrote a Storm miniseries, and that one was okay. It just came out, I think, in January, the trade paperback. So what this collects is Captain Marvel Dark Tempest, issues 1 through 5. It's 120 pages. And it really takes place immediately after the events of Kelly Thompson's run on Captain Marvel. Now, do you need to have read every issue of Kelly Thompson's run? No, because there's a really good little recap that happens here at the beginning. By the way, this artwork is by Paolo Villanelli, and Java Targaglia is the color artist. But it's a good run. I think everybody should read it. But all you need to know is that she needs a break. Carol Danvers needs a break. There's all kinds of things that have happened to her especially the last story arc of Kelly Thompson's run with the Brood and the X-Men, and now she's back on Earth. And what she ends up doing in the very first issue here of this 5-issue miniseries is go back to her hometown. She goes back to Maine. She goes to Harpswell Sound. She goes to a bar, and where a bunch of sailors are hanging out, they're drinking, and then they say, hey, there's a boat out there in the storm, and it needs some help. So they put a bet on whether Carol Danvers transfers into Captain Marvel. Keep in mind, this time she is leading the Avengers too, and she just needs a break. Or if she's just going to go out there and try to rescue these folks as Carol Danvers. So while the bets are taking place, we are at another location. This is now in New York City, where Nitro, the same guy that was the cause of course, Civil War, and of course, the demise of the original Captain Marvel, Marvel, is trying to get some telehealth care. And he's having a hard time understanding what to do. He starts believing that these people are just nothing but AI and robots. And he's trying to get some help because these headaches are causing him to blow up. And that's exactly what happens. He ends up blowing up. This is a guy that took out an entire city, right? And he's having issues controlling it because he's having these uncontrollable headaches. So Carol Danvers is on the case once she figures out that it could be Nitro that could be behind all this. So what ends up happening here, this is really weird. He ends up getting a call and saying, hey, we're willing to help you. And he just keeps talking about how much he hates Carol Danvers, that he can't stand her. And I'm sorry, she didn't go and see him. There's something going on out in outer space. And Tony Stark's like, hey, you're the leader of the Avengers. We need you here on the negative zone. And what she does is like, well, I have to deal with this first, so why don't you take all the Avengers with you? Because Raw has told me to come out here because there's something going on with this space thing that they can't track. There's some kind of quasar, something's going on. And Tony's like, whoa, you're the boss. Like, you should be here with us. But she's a little busy. So while that's happening, Nitro is talking to this stranger right here that's in a hood and a cloak. And she's pretty much manipulating his mind into believing that all of superheroes are technically like aliens with technology. And this is a new character, but as we find out, the character's name is Nada. And Nada wants to team up with Nitro because she has teleportation powers and she has ties to the cosmic universe. She actually is related to very powerful cosmic beings, and this is her first appearance. You can find out who those cosmic beings are, but just kind of looking at her when she's fully showing herself will show you exactly who she's related to. Now, Carol comes back to Earth. She's hanging out with her bestie. This is Jessica Drew, and she's, oh my gosh, these kids. Okay, so she has to talk to these kids here, and these kids are just awful, awful beings. I know this is not a review of the book, but oh my gosh, I don't know how some people are teachers. They're just talking about how, maybe we shouldn't be helping people. We're all doomed anyway. They're just being really edgy teenagers. The kind of teenagers that, oh my gosh, I would not want to be around. And there's 5 in particular that are just down, like, they don't want her or any superheroes to be around. They just keep making fun of each other. They keep making fun of these heroes. And she has to kind of lecture them, but that lecture gets cut short because remember when I said that this new character, her name, by the way, is Nada, is a teleporter? Well, she teleports Carol Danvers and these 5 kids that are annoying me and Carol somewhere else. And now it's up to Jessica Drew to figure out where her friend and these kids went with Nada. And there's a whole team up between Nada and Nitro, again, manipulating her. He hates Captain Marvel. He's always hated Captain Marvel. And she just wants to test out how they can work together. He can blow things up. She can transport them wherever they need to. So they figure a good place to test it out would be space. So this is a mini-series that lasts for 5 issues. And all 5 issues are collected in here. It's 120 pages. And in the back, we do have some variant covers here. Some gorgeous variant covers, including that Jen Bartel cover down there. And these right here. Homage cover up there by Ron Lim and Rochelle Rosenberg. The book retails for $17.99. X-Men, Days of Future Past, Doomsday. This is a mini-series. So this collects all 4 issues of this mini-series. Written by Mark Guggenheim, drawn by Manuel Garcia. And Manuel Garcia, I've seen his artwork before, but this one here feels a little bit different. Cam Smith doing the inks, and it could be Cam Smith inking it. And Yen Nitro. Now, if you've never read issues 141 and 142 of Uncanny X-Men, then this will spoil what happens in those issues. Not in full detail, but what would happen in those issues. And I mean, we're talking about stories, oh my gosh, from 1981, so I assume if you're getting this miniseries, you may know. If you need a break from the Krakoa era, and you want a lighter story when things were happier, this is not the book for you. This is a very interesting miniseries. Because what this does is it takes us back to the world of Days of Future Past. Now, of course, instead of giving you the year, like we did in the original Days of Future Past story, we're given year 28, when hell is breaking loose. And this is another one that is ruthless, man. Let me actually see what... This is rated Teen Plus. I was really surprised with some of the violence in this book. And I'm all for violence. I'm just really surprised where it went. Because we see the demise of a lot of these X-Men. There are 2 characters that we're introduced to here at the very beginning. And that is Goliath and Sprite. It is Charles and oh my gosh, what is her name? Jean, that's her name. Jean Rasputin. And these are Kitty Pryde's and Peter Rasputin's kids. And the setup for this is we're seeing the death of all these X-Men. And if you've seen and have read the Days of Future Past or Days of Future Present, you know how dark and gloomy this era gets. In here we see Cyclops get killed. But what really shocked me was we see both of these kids just get incinerated right in front of their mother and father. And their mother and father just snap. And so I just gotta, if you can't watch kids getting hurt, just letting you people know. All right. That was dark, man. I wasn't expecting that. Like, I've read Days of Future Past, and it wasn't that dark. I mean, we've seen skulls, we've seen bones, we've seen the remains of other characters. But these were two new characters that I thought, oh, okay, they're going to be around for a while. I've seen this. It's very stereotypical. They're going to stick around. They're created for this. But they're gone right in front of their mother. So what the book does is it goes back to the important events that lead into this miniseries, that lead into this world. So it's a setup to the world of Days of Future Past. The one where Wolverine and Storm and Catherine Pryde and Magneto, all with Franklin Richards, all have a plan to send her mind back to the past so they can stop a series of events from happening. And this shows exactly how things start happening and how things get dark quick, not just for mutants, but also for superheroes in general. How some of it is prevented, how some of it is stopped, how some of these characters end up dying is just really shocking. And the big battle between Magneto and Professor X, how Magneto ends up just becoming a good guy. Like, I know this is all set in a possible future, and it's interesting to read the coming of Ahab, tying it back to issues of Excalibur with one particular character. And if you've read that stuff, you know who I'm talking about. But just in detail, how it goes dark, how these characters come about, how Rachel Summers becomes one of these hounds. Man, it was interesting to go back to. Surprising that Chris Claremont didn't write this miniseries. Maybe he's just done with these possible future stories. But Guggenheim really added a lot of details in here that, most of us, when we were reading comics in the 80s and 90s, we could kind of see some of these stories leading into, oh, this is the way that's going to happen with Senator Kelly in the pages of X-Men, and that's going to lead into Days of Future Past. So it's interesting. Maybe he was just a big fan of Days of Future Past and he decided to write the story. But like I said, issues 1 through 5 are collected in here. You're going to see a lot of deaths, so don't get used to so many of these characters, especially if they're new. 112 pages, $15.99 in the back. We have some variant covers, including homage covers and original pages here. Marvel Unleashed. Now, when I got this book, I didn't even know it was a thing. I did one of those eye rolls. Like when you've seen the emoji eye rolls, that kind of thing. The eyes could not go further in the back of my head because I've read Pet Avengers, and this was right after I had just finished reading Days of Future Past, the little miniseries. I had just finished reading Spider-Verse. And I thought, oh my gosh, here we go with more Pet Avengers. I didn't want any more. I was done reading about animals that can talk and team up with each other. This is written by Kyle Starks, and Jesus Hervas and Juan Gedeon are the artists, Jan Nitro being the color artist. Holy crap, was I wrong. What the hell was I thinking? This book was so good. I'm not exaggerating. Like, I didn't expect this book to be so fun, so full of heart, so full of just, and some heartbreak, but with a drop of hope. Oh my gosh. What? And I know that Kyle Starks can write some stories like this. We've seen him do the, what is his name? The dog from, the board game. Okay, I put it in my hidden gems. But anyway, he's currently writing Peacemaker. We know that he can write a good mix of humor and heart and sadness. If I could give two books the seal of approval, this would be the second book. Yes, over Spider-Verse, over Luke Cage, over all the books I just talked about. This was so good. Don't sleep on this just because it's a bunch of animals on the front. The premise of this is very, very simple. Craven the Hunter is hired by a powerful being to go and kidnap Lockjaw. Lockjaw is the teleporting dog of the Inhumans. So that's one of the aspects of the story. Lucky the dog is out on the streets and he's approached by this guy that's wearing, this dog that's wearing a Wolverine mask that considers himself, or herself, sorry, a superhero. She calls herself the dog. And it's adorable because Lucky and Red Wing ask the same question. So, are you a fan of D-Man? Is that why you call yourself D-Dog? And she's like, no, I'm just a superhero that found this superhero mask when my owners left me. And the D stands for dog. And that's what she wants to be. She wants to be a superhero. And it's adorable. And she was approached by this poodle who's looking for their master. And Lucky is like, okay, sure, I'll tag along. Hawkeye's busy right now, but I can help. And of course, they're talking to each other. There's ridiculous goofball humor like this. And it turns out that the poodle's master is this AIM employee. This AIM employee that leads him into a path of something else happening that is darker than just a missing person. That leads back to the story of a kidnapped Lockjaw. So AIM's involved. Lucky's like, look, this is too big for me. We got to get the Avengers. So this is when Red Wing gets involved. And so does Captain Marvel's cat, Chewie. So Chewie gets involved here. Chewbacca, Sassy Danvers. And they go and try to find where this missing person is. And that leads him into an adventure that will take him to the Nether Realms themselves, because Blackheart is building an army of demons and using Lockjaw to pretty much teleport them here to Earth and just conquer over everything. So now it's up to those characters, along with Throg, the Frog of Thunder, and Bats, the Ghost Dog, to take down all of these demons. And it's just such a fun book. It was so full of heart. I don't want to spoil what happens in here. I did say there was a little bit of heartbreak. I don't know. I think I read it at the right time. It hit me harder than I thought it was going to hit me for a book that has this cover that is just the Pet Avengers teaming up again. Kyle Starks, you bastard, you did it. I love this book. And like I said, if I could give it a seal of approval for two books, I would. In the back, we have some extras. So here's your full team. And oh my gosh, D-Dog is so adorable. I love her. I love that dog. She was great. And character designs right here. There she is. And then some page art. 112 pages, $15.99. It's good for kids. It's all ages. Definitely for kids. Anybody. And it is that time of the video where we check out all of the spines of the books coming out this week, and also remind you all to smash that like button, subscribe, and ring that bell for notifications. Ringing that bell lets you know when our videos are going live, and we do put out videos every day. Alright, let's continue with the overview. Next up is Spider-Verse, Across the Multiverse. Now, if you have the Spider-Verse Omnibus, this has some of it collected in there. It's got one of the miniseries collected in there, but not all of it. This collects Edge of Spider-Verse 1 through 5, the original 2014 series. That's the one that's collected in the Omnibus. Also collected is Edge of Spider-Verse, the 2022 series, issues 1 through 5, and then Edge of Spider-Verse, the 2023 series, issues 1 through 4. Those have been collected in trade paperbacks like this, but this is the first time all three of the Edge of Spider-Verse series have been collected in a thick trade. So you have anybody here from David Hine to Dustin Weaver, to Gerard Way, writing these particular stories. Dan Slott, of course, writing some of these. And actually, he wrote a bunch of these later on. So, they're... I guess they are connected in a way. Because pretty much the pitch of this is... we have a multiverse. We have a multiverse of just spider people. People that have got bitten by radioactive spiders on different Earths. The idea of Edge of Spider-Verse 1, the very first miniseries from 2014, was to introduce you to some of these characters from these different Earths. Like the first one here is Spider-Man Noir. And by the end of each issue, we see a team of spider folks gathering them, taking them, and pretty much recruiting them for a team to take out Morlun and his gang. And that's what the first miniseries was. You know, we were introduced to Spider-Woman here, or who will become Spider-Gwen, and then later on she changes her name to Ghost Spider. But just different characters throughout. That's such an awesome picture. Throughout the different multiverse. That could be Peter Parker, or it could be somebody else that got bitten by a radioactive spider, or doesn't even have a radioactive spider. That was the idea of the first 5 issues of Edge of Spider-Verse. Then in 2022, we got this series right here. Now, this one's a little bit different because this features the character of Madam Web, looking probably more like her movie counterpart. Maybe that's why they decided to release this book here. Also characters from the 616 universe like Araña, and the return of these classic characters. But we also have like new Spider folks like this guy right here, Spider Rex, who is a Tyrannosaurus Rex named Peter Parker. Kept so ridiculous. But for some reason it works. Now they're being gathered for a different purpose. We have new villains. It's not just Morlun and his gang now. Now we have a new threat. And it's one continuing story in this one is what's going on. It's a little bit different than the first 5 issues of Edge of Spider-Verse. And then in 2023, this is the one that I think this is the musical. Yeah, this is the musical one. That's really awesome. And then in 2023, we had another series called Edge of Spider-Verse. So they're labeled right here. Sometimes the variant covers are on the opposite side of the standard edition cover. So that's what's collected in this here. All 3 of the miniseries called Edge of Spider-Verse. We do have the origin here of Spider-Boy in this issue, for example. This is the character that appeared in Dan Slott and Mark Bagley's run on Spider-Man. But the art here is by Humberto Ramos. And then we have other characters from across the Spider-Verse. And in the back, we have variant covers. So this book, like I said, collects all 3 of those miniseries. It's 416 pages, and the retail price is $44.99. And there are a lot of variants. There's concept variants. With Spider Hunter, I think is what he was called. And some of these characters you may not have heard of. Some of them didn't make it into the movie. That is a awesome cover right there by Alan Qua. Then, of course, Spider-Boy just blowing up. And this is the trade paperback where Spider-Boy first appeared. The Dan Slott and Bagley end of the Spider-Verse. And then the original Spider-Verse miniseries that does not contain the Edge of the Spider-Verse minis. Next up is Spider-Woman by Pacheco and Perez. Now, this isn't a epic collection. Much like the Edge of Spider-Verse across the multiverse, these books are as thick as epics. So you can see here. I mean, they are just as thick as these epic collections. But they aren't called epics. They're just trade paperbacks with that design. Somebody asked me, what do I think is going to happen in 10 years' time? In all honesty, I think 10 years' time, we're going to have these relabeled as Marvel Modern Epics. I mean, that would make sense, right? This goes out of print. Reprint it with just that trade dress. That's it. But for now, it is just Spider-Woman, just like by Dennis Hopeless, by Pacheco and Perez. I have been an advocate for this series for a long time. I absolutely love the trade paperbacks. I thought her adventures in this were great. It was a good mix of like old school with some modern twist to it. and big fan of the art. But all of this written by Carla Pacheco, all of it drawn by Perez, with the exception of the new costume, which is Paulo Siqueira. And then there's legacy pages in here too. So we kick it off with Jessica Drew on this mission, taking a job on the side because she can't really get work. She's trying to get back to the grind of being a superhero. But something's going on besides her new costume, which is awesome. Something's going on with her internally. As she's in this little carnival cruise, she starts getting sick. And all of it will lead her into the path that will take this entire actual volume here of all 21 issues. So that's right, this collects Spider-Woman 1 through 21. 496 pages, $44.99. To figure out who is behind of everything. From issue number 1, who is behind her sickness, who's behind her changes going on, who's pulling the strings. And it's a really, man, its artwork is so killer. It's a really interesting story. Now, if you want to see how she gets her new costume, this is the little story right here from Strike Force that shows how she got that costume. And oh my goodness, the way Siqueira draws her, she gives Mexican Gwen Stacy a run for her money. Just saying. Golly, look at that. My gosh, that costume is just awesome. Right? That's what we're looking at over here. But yeah, she gets a new costume in this little side story. It's a little backup story. And she uses it for about half of the issue because you probably noticed that she doesn't. This is a really interesting cover right here. This one's done by Perez and also Daniela Cunha. But the first story arc takes her just different places and finding new people, including a new nemesis who has ties to Otto Vermes. Now, Otto Vermes was a character that appeared in Marvel Spotlight number 32, which was her first appearance when she was just, what was it, Arachne? Or maybe she was Spider-Woman. No, she was Spider-Woman. It's just a character created by Archie Goodwin, but the new villain here has ties to him and wants revenge. For a character that just showed up and died in that one issue, you start wondering why exactly. But she'll end up going on road trips here, trying to figure out the answer as to what is causing all these changes, going all the way to Mount Wundergar, going to space. So, of course, trying to find the High Evolutionary, but she won't be going alone because she'll end up going with her buddy, Carol Danvers. She will accompany her to space. There are tie-ins in here to the King in Black. Actually, this is the King in Black tie-in. So you may have seen some of this stuff in the omnibus format. And there's tie-ins in here to Devil's Reign. So you'll probably see I think it was only 2 issues that showed up in Devil's Reign. But she's back. And even though she's not feeling like herself lately, it's still Jessica Drew. It's still that investigative side that I loved about her in the pages of Wolverine when Chris Claremont was writing her, because he always loved the character. He didn't think that they should have gotten rid of the character. And there's a lot of twists and turns that happen in here because the person pulling the strings is somebody that is really close to her. And why they're doing it is really interesting. Like the reasoning why they're doing it. And she does, like I said, get back to her old costume. And of course, you know, she's a responsible mom. So she has her baby and her life is filled with that as well. Here's the fight with Lady Bullseye. Amazing artwork by Perez. I would have loved to have seen this in an oversized hardcover format, but maybe we'll get a modern day Spider-Woman. Look at this. Spider-Woman omnibus one day after we get the classic stuff. So this book right here, I think I've gone on long enough for people to figure out, gets my seal of approval for this week. I've been waiting for this collection. It's been available in trades, but some of those trades are out of print, and now you can find them all in one place. In the back, you do get variant covers. I'm not going to go through all of them, but some of the variant covers in here, including the one there by Jenny Frison, Scotty Young, Michael Cho. That's a awesome one. Maybe we'll get some Mighty Marvel Masterworks one day. Jen Bartel. And just different covers back there. 496 pages, $44.99. Sweet Christmas. Last but certainly not least is Luke Cage Epic Collection Volume 2. So this one right here gets us from 1975 to 1977, meaning that we get to see the end of his run. So this is the Fire this time. I love this cover. I think this is from issue number 37, if I'm not mistaken. But if you're wondering where to go from here, because like I said, this finishes out his run, you can find his adventures in other epic collections, like these right here. When the title becomes Power Man and Iron Fist, when Iron Fist was canceled, and it became Power Man and Iron Fist, the Heroes for Hire. So, what does this collect? This collects Power Man issues 24 through 37 and annual number 1. 472 pages, $44.99. We have Don McGregor, Marv Wolfman, Chris Claremont, I think he did the annual, Tony Isabella, Bill Mantlo, Steve Englehart, George Tuska, Lee Elias, and Ron Wilson. Some of the art in here, of course, the legendary George Perez, Vince Coletta, Dave Hunt, just to name a few of the inkers. And we kick it off with issue 24. And this stuff was a riot. I got to read a lot of this stuff for the first time in omnibus format because I didn't have the Marvel Masterworks. So it has been released in omnibus format. It's been released in Marvel Masterworks. But for the first time, we're having it here in Epic Collection. One of these issues is a reprint, if you're wondering why it's only got 472 pages. So issue 24 is the first appearance of Black Goliath. The character of Bill Foster has appeared in the pages of Avengers before. And I think in this one, though, they call him William Temple. I don't think they called him William Foster. And he's still hanging out with Dave Griffith, which always struck me as kind of weird. I don't think I mentioned that in my first overview. Maybe I did. I can't remember. I didn't go back to that omnibus overview. Because that character of D.W. Griffith is named after the movie director. And that's the guy that directed Birth of a Nation. I always thought it was interesting that he's hanging out with a character like that, or if it was done on purpose. But here we have the first appearance of Black Goliath. And this story kind of sets up the tone of the rest of the book. You have Luke Cage going all the way to California, because he's in Harlem, right? But he goes to California because he's after his lady. His lady left him a Dear John or Dear Luke letter. So Claire Temple's like, look, I'm going to go back to California. And here he finds out that, wait, she's still married. What? And Black Goliath's like, hey, keep away from my woman. He's like, what are you talking about, man? Your woman's with me now. So they get into this fight. This giant guy gets in a fight with bulletproof Luke Cage all over this lady. Now, of course, she explains, look, we're not married. We're divorced. And the D word back then, it's a lot worse than these days, and that's probably why it made it a bigger deal than you would think. Then we have the Circus of Crime come in here, because they're all part of the act, and they realize, oh man, we have a superhero here that's watching us. So they get in on the fun in the next issue. And pretty much, this Epic Collection just has hokey, fun stories like that. Some of these are so like these villains, like this is X right here, who just loves bursting through walls. And I love the fact that at one time Luke Cage is like, sweet Christmas, another wall that he just keeps bursting through. And he realizes even though he has bulletproof skin, if he's falling, that, that might end up killing him. We have a couple of first appearances through this particular Epic Collection right here. But the main one besides, of course, Bill Foster there, or I'm sorry, Black Goliath, not Bill Foster, is Piranha Jones. Piranha Jones appears through here, but not before Mr. Fish. Don't make fun of that guy. Mr. Fish. It's amazing how some of these characters haven't come back yet. And then you got, was this Cockroach, I think? But eventually, you'll have some artwork in here by Ron Wilson. Frank Robbins actually does a fill-in issue, and I know people had problems with Frank Robbins, but I actually enjoy his art. I think it's a unique take on these characters. But man, yeah, Ron Wilson was just such an awesome artist. And Vince Colette doing the art, the inks on his pencils were just great. The annual in here also shows the fight between him and Moses Magnum. And that character right there was, of course, retcon in the classic X-Men issue that Apocalypse beefed him up and made him stronger. But in here, he's creating earthquakes, and of course, it's up to Luke Cage to stop him. The IRS issue. That's all I will say. The IRS issue. This is the one that's by Frank Robbins. Yeah, this is what his art looked like. But yes, this is what his artwork looked like. I was a big fan of it. It's got this cartoony, like, Golden Age feel to it. I dug it. But a lot different, of course, than when Ron Wilson took over the book. And, yeah, so issue 37, that's the one they used for cover. Issue 36 is not collected here, it's just the cover. But it does reprint Hero for Hire number 12. And then we'll see him fight some other goons in here that never make an appearance again. Although some of them do show up again in the pages of the Power Man and Iron Fist. This is Goldbug, who shows up for a few issues. His relationship with Claire changes a little bit. This is the Mace. That's right on the nose right there. And of course, when it ends, it all says that, hey, don't forget to check out the next issue that will feature Iron Fist and will forever change the character of Power Man and Iron Fist, because Power Man 48 through 49 led into Power Man and Iron Fist number 50. So this is the Chris Claremont issue. That's right, because he wrote those issues. But in the back, we do have the cover to Giant Size Power Man number 1, which reprints Hero for Hire 14 through 17. The calendar to house ads. This is Ron Wilson's amazing artwork. And then, oh my gosh, the Epic Collections. And Mighty Marvel does it again. The book retails for $44.99, and it has 472 pages. And that, as they say, is that. If you're interested in purchasing any of these books, don't forget to check out our sponsor, cheapgraphicnovels.com, your online home for graphic novels and collected editions up to 50% off cover price. They have excellent shipping and prompt and helpful service. Check out their bargain deals for up to 90% off cover price. And don't forget that CGN also takes pre-orders. That way you don't miss out on the hottest releases. And they are currently running a special promotion for you Minties. If you're a first-time customer, after receiving your order confirmation email, reply back to that email and let them know Near Mint Condition sent you their way. They will then apply a free shipping promotional credit to your next order in the US. Cheap Graphic Novels, your source for the hottest books with the kind of deep discount, quality shipping, and customer service that will keep you coming back for more. And that was the content and page count of each of these collections. Let me know in the comments down below if you are picking these up, which of these you've read already in single issues or in digital format, which you liked, and which you didn't even know were coming out, which one of these piqued your interest. And if you have any questions, leave your questions down below. Don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe, and ring that bell for notifications. Everyone stay healthy and safe out there. Much love.